In the distant future, the Intergalactic Exchange Program flourished, connecting students from across the galaxy to foster mutual understanding. It wasn't easy to earn a place on the exchange, especially not at the newly built Unity School, where the best and brightest from hundreds of species gathered on a space station at the edge of the spiral arm. Today, the station buzzed with unusual excitement because an entire cohort from Earth, designated a Category 7 Deathworld in the Galactic Union, had finally joined. Humanity had long held a complex reputation. While they were famed for endurance, survival instinct, and creativity, they also hailed from one of the most lethal planets in the galaxy. As a result, Deathworlders rarely mixed with species from calmer planets, let alone students from worlds with planetary hazard ratings of Category 3 and below. Species from these worlds generally saw safety regulations as sacrosanct, ingrained, even cultural. Many of their parents wondered aloud why Deathworlders would attend Unity School at all. Wasn't their place already plenty unified on Earth? The answer to that came during the first Safety Lessons seminar, held in Unity School's grand, multi-level auditorium. The class instructor, an Ithorian professor with a reputation for being meticulous, took a deep breath, adjusted her silver-trimmed glasses, and turned her stern gaze toward the human students seated among their peers. Today, she began, in a voice that rang clear and serious through the massive room, we will discuss interpersonal and environmental safety protocols. The principles here have kept civilizations safe for eons and will be crucial to your survival. Students from various species adjusted their holopads, appendages, and antennae, ready to take notes. The human students, however, simply leaned back in their seats, arms folded. Some even shared glances that could only be described as amused. The Ithorian professor scowled slightly. In the interest of full disclosure, we understand that Earth-trained Deathworlders like you come from a unique environment. But all students must abide by these procedures while aboard Unity Station. Understood? A young human named Jake nodded politely. Yes, Professor Gorthan. With that, she launched into an exhaustive session covering a dozen scenarios and their appropriate responses. Handling minor electrical failures, navigating hazardous atmospheres, and dealing with unexpected encounters in vacuum-exposed corridors. Hisses of fear and murmurs of awe rippled through the class as each terrifying scenario was presented. The protocols were meticulous, each emphasizing caution and method. Then came the practical exam. In the Unity School's vast training bay, students faced simulations designed to test their reaction times. In one scenario, the floor tilted violently, simulating a massive hull breach. Students were expected to carefully activate their magnetic harnesses, adhere to the floor, and stabilize themselves as they waited for assistance. The non-human students followed these instructions to the letter, cautious and tense. But the humans? With unmasked excitement, they simply leaned back, letting the floor's angle send them sliding straight down. "Woohoo!" yelled a red-headed girl named Zara as she skidded past, barely phased. "Deathworlders!" squealed a feathered Darturian named Alak, horrified as he clung for dear life. You'll perish." But Zara just laughed, catching herself at the bottom as if it were all in a day's work. Then came the obstacle course. Plasma hazards simulated with glowing blue barriers, live wires made to emit harmless bursts of energy, and finally, a zero-gravity swim through a vacuum-sealed tunnel with meteor debris simulators. The Ithorian professor watched in silent horror as the humans bypassed each obstacle with a sort of reckless glee. At one point, Jake even hopped across one of the plasma hazard barriers, tucking into a roll with perfect timing. "Jake, stop!" Professor Gorthan shrieked. "You must wait for clearance, and never jump directly over plasma hazards." Jake turned and shrugged with a grin. "It was barely 2 feet high, ma'am. I've done parkour over worse back home." The professor's eyes widened in genuine disbelief. "You've done worse?" Zara, who'd been sprinting along the sidewall with a laugh, added, "Totally. We train in this stuff all the time." Some of the other students, who'd spent their whole lives following strict safety protocols, gathered around, curious yet horrified. Even the skeptical Darturian, Ilak, who'd nearly passed out clinging to his safety tether during the floor-tilting simulation, crept closer. "But why?" he asked, blinking his wide, avian eyes. "Why would anyone risk themselves willingly?" Jake's grin softened. "We don't call it risking ourselves. It's just life on Earth. You either learn to adapt or, well, you don't make it very far. But we don't exactly want to live scared." The Ithorian professor's rigid expression softened as well, though she still seemed caught between fascination and utter bafflement. "So, you're saying Earth's environment forces you to disregard basic survival protocols?" Zura piped up. "It's not about disregarding them. It's about knowing how much you can push them. Earth throws everything at you. Rough terrains, unpredictable weather, animals that'll hunt you for sport. We learn early on to make quick decisions, sometimes even before danger shows up." There was a collective intake of breath, as students from serene planets with ecosystems designed to be gentle looked upon the humans with fresh awe. Professor Gorthan tapped her holopad, seemingly at a loss. "So, if your survival instincts are already calibrated for extreme environments, I suppose Unity's safety lessons may seem redundant." Jake shrugged. "You might say that. I mean, no offense, the protocols are great, but we'd probably be okay without them." Professor Gorthan adjusted her glasses again, processing this paradigm shift. "Then perhaps our safety classes will serve more to educate the other students on what to expect from their human classmates." This time, the laughter wasn't just from the humans. As class ended, the Ithorian professor made a mental note to review Unity School's safety procedures. She would need to add a special Deathworlder clause, making adjustments for the unique adaptability of humans. After all, a species that grew up on a world that would horrify the most hardened Ithorian was bound to have a few unorthodox responses to danger. As the students dispersed, Ilak, still visibly shaken, approached Jake with cautious respect. "Next time we have a group assignment, I'd appreciate your help," he admitted. Jake clapped Ilak's shoulder with a grin. "I got you, Ilak. Don't worry. We Deathworlders always have each other's backs." And with that, the humans sauntered away, leaving their new friends marveling over a species that had somehow turned danger into second nature and safety into a skill they never quite needed to learn.